Yay. Okay, I can see that I am now streaming live on both platforms. Okay. So, wonderful. Okay, so for those of you over on Facebook who missed the first part of this, I am wrapping up the final jacket and for an order of 3. One was for 18 months, one was for 24 months, and then one was a 6T. And they will have the embroidered peekaboo image on the back and their name on the front. All the jackets were custom made from scratch by me, and they will go with matching tulle skirts, and there will be a couple of t-shirts in the order. So I completed the stitch out on the last jacket, and I'll show you the first 2. They're already done along with the tulle skirts. Actually, all the tulle skirts are done. So I just finished the stitch out for the 3rd jacket, which was a 6T, but halfway, and here she is. She's just a little princess. But halfway through the stitch out, I realized that I made her shirt pink and green. Because I was trying to coordinate her shirt with the ribbon in her skirt. And here's her skirt. So this is the skirt to match the jacket, okay? And then this is the skirt. But I realized that this is for my Delta friend. And you know them Deltas, they don't really do the pink and green thing. But luckily, when I cut the jackets out, I cut 2 size 6s, and I was going to put the extra one in my store on my website. So this one will be the one that's going to be available on my website in my store once I get it complete. And it's a 6T. So I did use a basting stitch in this. So now I have to take out the basting stitch, and you just take a seam ripper and very gently, you don't even have to really cut through, you just pull. That's how easy the basting stitches come out. I really like the basting stitches for everything that I do. A lot of people that embroider, I hear them say the same thing. I hear them say that they don't like to use the basting stitches because, one, it's time consuming, and they say that it leaves holes. Now, I'm using basting stitches on satin, and then when I get about 6 inches or so out, I just cut it and take a few more out. See how easy they come out? And the basting stitches really do help your image, help the fabric stay down nice and taut to the stabilizer while you're doing the stitch out. Okay. And you just take your time. This isn't a race. Trim it. And finish. And then I will trim this. Trim it. you have it. That didn't take any time whatsoever, okay? And then I'll check on the back side of it, and I can tell that this here is a part of the basting stitch, and I pull that away. Okay, now I'm ready to remove this clear film, which is wash away stabilizer. Now, this is how easy this pulls off. Just pull that off, okay? You know, you may be able to salvage a good bit of this because I have a very, very small hoop that will be used for very small images and names. So I will actually go ahead and save this because that's a lot of usable stabilizer. Okay, so there it is now with the wash away stabilizer removed. Okay, then what I will do is I will go in with my embroidery scissors, which are curved, to nip any threads. And I really do not have any loose threads to snip. There's one around her eyelash that I will go in and get. Yep. And then there's one here. Let's see. There's one right there. Okay. Oh, yeah. Anywho, I'm just going to cut it. Just trying to position it in the cameras. That's advanced skills for me right now. All right. And then there's one over here by her finger. We'll snip that. So just very closely snip any loose threads, and that's it. Yeah. She was a perfect stitch out minus the pink and green. All right. Now for the back stabilizer, we're just going to cut around the image, and we're going to take our time because it would be horrible to have done all that work only to cut through your fabric. So I'll get my stabilizer scissors, and I'm going to take my time and cut around always hold my finger between my hand, these fingers between the stabilizer and the fabric, and that is just another safety step to prevent me from even the scissors coming anywhere close to the fabric. All right, this is not a marathon. Quality over quantity should be your objective. Because when it's not, oftentimes it will show up in your work. You're going to hear me say that a lot. Quality over quantity. Even with this, okay, so this is cutaway stabilizer. There's a lot of usable stabilizer on this because I have, and I need to bring it down here. I have, it's like a 2-inch by 3-inch hoop or something close to that. So I just saved 4 reusable pieces of stabilizer. Okay, So there's some things you can conserve on, and other things like your needles, you need to just throw them away after every project. All right, so we are going to put her aside because she is now ready. The rest of the jacket is ready for me to put together. And so what I'm working on now is the lining for the jacket. This is one for this one. I'm working on the second lining for this jacket. All right. So our next color is going to be hot pink. I have to remember, do not use the green. Okay, so I just stitched in the sleeves, and with sleeves you want to double stitch. So I do a zigzag stitch in the seam. Close it up. So what I did on this, which is different than the method I use when I'm sewing for adults, is, so this is the back, and then this is the front. So you would usually stitch the front to the back at the shoulder seams, close up the side seams, and then stitch the arms, and then set the arms into the armholes of the front and back panels. But for the smaller sizes, I've chosen to use the flat arm set, to set it in flat, meaning the front and back panels are left open, and I install it flat. So when you use that method, then you have to go back and close everything up. But you're closing up the arm, they're meeting at the underarm. So that's going to be the first place that I pin. And using this very fine, delicate fabric, you want to use your satin pins, because if you use your regular stick pins, which are generally larger, you're going to leave holes in your fabric. Okay, so pin the arm or the sleeve first, a couple pins, and I do use pins. A lot of people sew without pins, or they might use the Wonder Clips. Wonder Clips are great, but they're not for every fabric. And I use pins because when you're using slippery fabric, sewing slippery fabric like this, and if you don't use pins, you're not going to keep it straight. I mean, and when you don't keep your fabric straight, the size is going to be off. You know, don't let folks tell you differently. Use your pins. Okay, so here's the bottom of the jacket. So we just make one straight pass from the bottom of the jacket to the tip of the arm where your wrist is, and then you're done with it. Turn it. Same thing to the other side. Okay. Pin it under the arm first, match those two seams up. She's looking good over there. It's stitching her face and her hands out now on the embroidery machine. Pin that. And the bottom of the jacket, lining that is. Stitching that 5/8 seam allowance. Get to the underarm seam, turn, pivot. Should be right on 5/8, and you keep going. Do not run over your pins, no matter how fine they are or who you see doing it. Your machine may decide it doesn't like that, and it'll cost you a lot of money to repair your machine because you didn't take the time to take that pin out. Okay. So both my side seams are stitched in, and I'm going to do the same thing that I did with the shoulder seam, and I'm going to put in a zigzag secondary stitch just to reinforce the seam. And you put that in the seam allowance. So if you use the 5/8 line as a guide, it's pretty much going to be a quarter or 1/4 of an inch. And do that on both sides, right on time. Oh no, I thought it was time for a change. both sides. Put my lining aside after this. I'll be done with the lining for now. Okay. Alright, now we're done with this lining. I'm going to turn it right side out. Okay, we're done with the lining, so we're going to put this aside. Now I have both linings done. Now I'm going to take my back panel, lay that right side facing up. Take one of the front panels, this is the right side. I'm going to put right sides together. Left. Oh, and I already did my pockets, so I already did the pockets for this jacket ahead of time. Okay. And then I need to pin this at the shoulders. I'm going to put this together the same way that I did the lining. I'm going to use the flat method to set the arms in. You know, maybe I'm not going to. I'm going to use the regular method to set the arms in the jacket, only because I have to be very careful around the pocket area. So I'm going to go ahead and set the arms in this the regular way. So you still want to do the shoulders first. Right. 5/8 seam allowance. Change it back to a straight stitch. Front stitch, back stitch. Move in, pin out. In the car, inside. Okay, all right. Are they okay? All right, I've got to take a break because apparently I left my parking lights on in my car, so I will be right back. All right, and the next color is pink.
No, I didn't touch it. Nope. Yeah, I did nothing.
Okay, I am back. So it went ahead and stitched out the pink. I let that spin while I ran and took care of turning off my lights. Okay, again, cut it, gently pull it out. Okay. Now the next thread color is gray. Now this is the other part of her shirt. So we are not going to use green. We are going to use this beautiful, we're going to use this beautiful blue. Okay. So let's put this on. That'll match really nice. Okay. It's kind of hard to do with. Boom, boom, boom. Take your time and thread it. It'll save you a lot of headache in the long run. Okay. Automatic needle threader. Then, sometimes the automatic needle threader isn't so automatic. Sometimes it catches and sometimes it doesn't. Pull it through. Okay. And then put the presser foot down and it's ready to roll. Okay. So I let it stitch a little bit and then I clip it. All right. Now, back to this. Stitch in the shoulder seams, 5/8 of an inch. Front stitch, back stitch. Move your pins. Back stitch. Okay. Now, ordinarily you would press open your seams flat. Okay. I'm not going to do that for two reasons. One, because this is satin and I'm practically not going to use any heat on this. And two, I want to reinforce the seam with a zigzag stitch. So now I'm going to put in my zigzag stitches. Stitch length at 4. I don't have to back stitch on these stitches because they're going to be secure when they get stitched down in with the seam allowance, and that's what that looks like. Let me see if I can figure out how to do it. There we go. All right, that's the main stitch, and then there's the zigzag stitch, my reinforcement stitch. Do that to both sides. Change your machine back to regular stitch. Now we're going to move on and stitch the sides. Put in the side seams. Now I have to be careful with the side seams, and we're getting ready to do a thread change. So let's do the thread change first, and then I'll explain that. Okay. Lift your presser foot. Clip your thread from the spool. Gently pull your thread out. Dispose of it. Okay, now my next thread color is white. Go in and click that. All right. Change this out. Get my white thread, put that on, and just take your time. There's no need to move fast. There's no marathon. Remember, quality over quantity. All right. Take your time, thread your machine. Boom, 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 boom. Engage your automatic needle threader. Boom, boom. There we go. Pull it through. Cut it with the thread cutter. Put your presser foot down. Start. Now there isn't much. This doesn't go for that long, so let me explain this. So the pockets in this jacket are just some side pockets. So you have to be careful when you go to close up your side seams, because you want to make sure you don't stitch your pockets closed. And so if you look at that, it's supposed to be 5/8 of an inch, but I actually made it a little bit just past 5/8 of an inch. All right, so now we're going to just close it up. I'm going to pin it. Okay. Just pin it. And we're going to put in a 5/8 of an inch, 5/8 of an inch seam allowance. I'm going to use a back stitch at the beginning and end. Okay, now I'm going to check, make sure I didn't catch that pocket, and I did not. Okay. Pocket is open, so I didn't close it up. See there? Go ahead and stitch up the other side the same way after you pin it. And we're ready for a thread change. Okay, so lift your presser foot, nip your thread, gently pull it out. Okay, the next thread color is, we are moving on to the black. Now, I want black bobbin thread with the black. So I'm going to gently remove my frame, take out the white bobbin, and put in a black bobbin. I wound my own bobbins. I am not sold on the pre-wound bobbins because I am very particular on the types of bobbins that I put into my machines. I generally only like to use the bobbin cases, not the cases, but the the little bobbin spools that are designed for my machine. Because if something goes wrong, then I'm definitely going to be blaming it on me using an off-brand or a generic brand bobbin thing, and I'm just not going to take that risk. Okay, put the frame back on, and now I need to get my black thread. So I'm going to use some new thread, This is Gunnelled embroidery thread. I purchased it from Wawak. All right. This is the thread. Okay. Purchased, that's the brand. I purchased it from Wawak. This will be my first time using this brand. The Coats embroidery thread. This thread is awful. I hear a lot of embroiderers say that they have trouble with black embroidery thread across the board, that there's a lot of thread pops with it. So I'm going to see if this brand is any better than the helps with that. So I already know that Coats is not a thread brand that I want to use. Coats embroidery thread. I'm not a fan of it. Maybe just for some lettering or something like that, but to use full scale in a project, I don't think I want to do it. All right, that's not grabbing. There we go. This thread feels a certain way too. So I don't know about this, but we're gonna run with it. I purchased about 8. Let me get my tweezers. For some reason, my automatic threader doesn't want to grab this thread without shredding it. All right, let's do this. It was funny. I don't know about this thread. And of course, there was no way for me to really feel the thread because I ordered it online. All right, down. Let's spin it. Let's see what happens. All right. Look at that. 2 stitches in and it's tearing. Wow. Okay, cut it. Lift my foot. Pull it out. Alrighty. Well, that's a no-go for me. It even feels funny. So I think I'm going to have to send all of these back. Alright, so I think I have a black in the sim thread. Let's see here. I don't know if this is black. It's not black. Oh my God, don't tell me. I'm going to have to... Let me check my color chart. So this is 900. My color chart for 900 is black. Whew, thank goodness. I have to go and get a bunch of black thread tomorrow. I like the Sewology in terms of getting something right away. I will go and pick up a couple of spools of the Sewology black thread tomorrow, but I will also tonight just go ahead and order the black Madeira thread and give that a shot, because a lot of people pretty much swear by the Madeira thread. Oh, come on, this takes forever to find the starting point. Does anybody else have a hard time finding the starting point on some threads? Now, this is the first one out of this set that I can't find the starting point. Wow. Wow. You are, oh my goodness, look at this. I think I got it. Sheesh. All right, I found the starting point. There's a good chance that this is going to jam again because there's a little bit of bobbin thread on the bottom that jammed, and sometimes I have to take the hoop off, cut it and then rethread it. So we'll see what happens. All right, let's try that again. Now see there, and this isn't this Janome is it's supposed to be a good brand, but as you all witness, you know, it jammed right up, and it feels, to be honest with you, it feels awful. So I'm going to send these back. I might try one more color just to see if it's the color that is giving me trouble. But if, you know, the next color that I open, you know, performs the same way, I am going to ship these right back to Wawa. So perhaps I'll open up one of the white ones to see. All right, so that's going to spin for a while. The black, it has a lot of stitching to do for the black, and oh my God, y'all! You know what I forgot to do? I forgot to put the wash away stabilizer over top of it. But it's okay because the strong stabilizer is doing very well. The strong stabilizer combined with the basting stitch, it's performing well, so it's okay. I don't need it. All right. 5/8 of an inch, front stitch, back stitch. Front stitch, back stitch, and I'm going to do the same thing with these side seams and put in a reinforcement stitch, zigzag stitch with 4.0 stitch length. Reinforcement stitch on the other side. Like I said, ordinarily you would press open your seams, but I'm not pressing open my seams on this project because one, it's satin, and two, I want all of the seams reinforced because it is for a youth, a child. All right, so we have the front and back stitched together. Now the difference between this jacket and the first one, well, now going to be the one that's on the machine now, because this front was originally for this one that I'm making now, but I already put the name on the front panel, and again it has that wash away stabilizer on it, so I can just pull that off, pull that right off, pull that right off. Okay, this is the front panel for the jacket that's on there now. Her name is Lauren. Okay. And then, you know, I'll go in and cut the back stabilizer. For now, we're focused on this jacket. So, whoever ends up purchasing this jacket, I will just go in and add the name to the front panel, you know, after it's ordered. It's not a problem. So I can add the name after the fact. All right. Now, for these sleeves, we're going to do the standard way of putting the sleeves in. I didn't bother clipping in the markings to tell me which end is the back and which end is the right, because you should know as a seamstress that the back is always going to have a steeper curve. So I know that this is my back. Okay. First thing we have to do is we have to close it up, close the sleeve up. And then there's a little bit of a ease usually in your sleeve. So you see that? You see that gap right there? That's ease. You have to work that in. And the reason why you have ease in the sleeve, if you think about it, is because we bend our arm. And so we need a little bit extra to accommodate for the bending. If not, then you'd probably burst the seams if we didn't have a little bit of ease in the sleeve, the arm part of the sleeve. So, you know, just pin it in the center. Because it's such little, there isn't that much ease, it closes right up once you pin it. We'll do the same thing. To the other arm, sleeve. See, this is why pinning is important, because if you try to go take this to the machine and stitch it without pinning it, that ease is going to be off. You're going to get to the bottom of your stitching and you're going to think you didn't cut it right, when you did, actually you did cut it right, you just didn't allow for this, for that ease. Okay. So once you put that center pin in there, the ease pretty much works its way out. You know. And you just keep, see that ease that's there? All you do is put your finger here, work it out a little bit, and it closes the ease right up. Pin it. But you can really only accomplish that by pinning it. You can't do that on the machine without it being pinned. Okay, 5/8 of an inch seam allowance still. Oh, straight stitch. Front stitch, back stitch, 5/8 of an inch. Okay. And I'm going to do the same thing here. Put in our secondary stitch, zigzag stitch, 4.0 width. Put it right in the seam allowance. I'm not pressing open my seams because I'm putting a reinforcement stitch in all of them. Same thing, the other sleeve. Change out my bobbin because it's low. So my embroidery machine and my main machine use the same size bobbin. And in the embroidery machine, this machine will let me know that the bobbin is too low to complete the current task. And it will not stitch any further until you change the bobbin. So sometimes the bobbins, I have to take the bobbins off of the embroidery machine with thread still on it. And sometimes it can have as much as this amount. That's a lot of thread that's still on that bobbin. But I could no longer use it in the project that was on the machine. So I will put these aside and use them in my sewing project, because the thread that's in here is designed for bobbins. So I use bobbin thread in my bobbins. And because I'm using my main color for this is pink, so all of my internal sewing, which is pretty much the insides of the jacket, in which you're not going to see the thread, it is perfectly fine for me to use white bobbin thread along with the pink thread, which is my main thread. Okay, so what we have to do now, which is the part everyone hates, or just about everybody I know hates, and that is setting the seams into the armholes. So to set the seams, you have to turn your sleeves right side out. So both sleeves get turned right side out. Be careful. This fabric is very delicate. Okay. All right, and I got a pin in there to remind me which end is the back end. Technically, if you do your double clip, you would know, but I didn't want to put any clips in this fabric because it's satin and it's very delicate. All right. So then you have to turn your jacket wrong side out. And so this is the back end of my arm. So I have to make sure that this side goes into the back, matches up with the back panel, back side of the jacket. Okay. So I need to put it, I'm going to take the seam, the arm seam, okay. I'm going to take the seam allowance and I'm going to pinch it to the back, okay. I'm actually going to pin it, well, I don't have to worry about it. So I have that pinned so that I can hold it over to the side. Now, if you were to press your seams open, then you'd have two seams and you just match up your seam and you'd be good. But remember, we didn't press our seams open in this project. We put in a reinforcement seam. So I pinned the seam allowance over to the back of the sleeve. That's going to match up with the back panel. So then you have to match that seam up with the inside of the seam, underarm seam, and I'm going to take that seam allowance and I'm going to pin that to the back. Well, I don't need to pin it, I can just hold it. But I need to match those seams up. So you need to match the underarm seam up with the sleeve seam. And I'm going to take out that pin I had holding that seam allowance over. And I'm going to put a pin right there. Okay. So that's pinned down. My seam is pinned down to the back of the jacket. And my sleeve seam is pinned down to the back of the jacket. Okay. Then I'm going, and then that's the pin to let me know this is the back. And as you can see, it's being pinned to the back. Then I'm going to take the shoulder seam and I'm going to push that seam down to the back. And I'm going to take this pin out. I'm going to temporarily hold that down. Okay. So my shoulder seam is being pinned to the back panel as well. All right. Rule of thumb is you generally will have your shoulder seams and your side seams pinned to the back. Then Everybody puts their sleeves in differently, but because I've set so many sleeves in, I do not use markings. I just work it in. So I wouldn't advise this method if you, you know, are new to sewing, if you're a beginner, or if you're looking to learn how to set a sleeve in properly. Do not do this method. So the correct way, or the way that a beginner would do, is they would put in ease stitching in the sleeve cap, and then they would pin the sleeve in, and then they would pull on the ease stitching threads to work it in that way. I don't do that, and that just comes with, you know, experience. So I'm just pinning it in, and so I'm here, and I just kind of work it in. Okay, and there's ease there, and I work it in. All right, flip. Can't really see this. That. Work it in. Okay. Now this is the part when you get to that gives you the trouble if you're new to setting in sleeves. This is why you do your ease stitching, to ease it in. But like I said, I don't use the ease stitching because I just do it by hand. Now this is ready. So every machine has, you can remove this part, you know, and this is the arm to make it easier to sew on your sleeve, and you can kind of put your sleeve in that hole and move it around. I don't do that. In my opinion, it doesn't make it easier unless you're sewing like a men's jacket or something, or a shirt where it's, you know, generally bigger. I don't bother with that. I just take my time. Just take my time on the sleeve, because the sleeve is generally the hardest part of any project. 5/8 of an inch, needle down, and then I double check to make sure that I haven't caught the other side of the jacket, because it's very easy to stitch the jacket together, and guess what? I did. Yep. Nope, I hadn't. It's just so small, it's kind of hard to, and that's another thing that I've learned sewing these children's pieces. You don't have much room, wiggle room. Okay, so I'm gonna do a front stitch, back stitch, and take my time and go around. Pins do not want to stay in this satin fabric on the armholes, which is one of the reasons why I was doing setting the sleeves in using the flat method. But this method is fine too. Just have to take your time and make sure you're not stitching more than the seam allowance, because it's very easy to do when you're putting in sleeves. It's very easy to stitch more than just the sleeve. And you have to, you know, pick it all loose. And on the satin fabric, it would be a mess having to re-pick something because the fabric is so thin. You know, probably tear it. All right. Just take your time. Do not run over your pins. Make sure it's nice and flat. Take your time. Remember, quality over quantity always. Now, I apologize not using the string chat, but I don't know how to bring it in so that I can see if there's anyone out there, you know, talking to me. I might just be talking to cyberspace, and that's fine too. You know, eventually I'll have some viewers, but you know, one day. So I'm perfectly fine talking to cyberspace. So and this is really for my benefit. More than anything, because I have to get used to talking through what I'm doing on camera, because you know, you basically just get used to, you know, you just being in here sewing by yourself. So I have to get used to talking through what I'm doing. So really, you know, I'm just kind of practicing. So, but why not practice with a real project? All right, so I'm getting close to the beginning. You want to make sure that everything is nice and straight. You're not stitching more than what you're supposed to stitch. You don't have much wiggle room with this little jacket. Okay, double check. Okay, back to the front. I'm going to check it before I do a reinforcement stitch to see that I didn't. And it's a perfectly set sleeve. Okay. So now, before I move on to the next sleeve, I'm going to put in a reinforcement stitch. Same thing, a zigzag stitch. Be extra careful when you do this, because it's very easy to stitch and accidentally catch a part of the jacket that you're not supposed to. Okay, zigzag 4.0 reinforcement, and this time I stay close to the end of the seam instead of to the actual stitch, seam allowance stitch. I stay closer to the end. That way I make sure I do not accidentally catch a part of the jacket. I've done that too many times to count. Right. You always want to put in a reinforcement stitch in the sleeve cap because that's probably the part of the jacket that takes the most stress. Backstitch this a little bit. All right. Now I'm ready to move on to the second sleeve, and we're going to set that one in. I don't set them at the same time because, like I said, the pins slip out in this fabric very easily, and you know all the pins would have fallen out by the time I get over to this side. Okay, so I'm going to push my seam allowance to the back panel, push the seam allowance in the sleeve towards the back part of the sleeve, match up my side seam with the sleeve seam, pin it, and then go ahead and pin the center point of the sleeve. Okay, and I know I usually have to pull that up a little bit higher than the you know, you don't want to match it up that way because, you know, so that everything is nice and lined up. You can't do that in the sleeve cap because the sleeve will never go in there. So I know that it's usually about that much ease, so I'll go ahead and pin that and then work the rest of the sleeve and then go back and work that in, ease it in. And you're not going to really understand what that means if you do not have any experience setting sleeves, if you're working on a project or if you're making one of these. And I suggest you perhaps go and watch like some of the other YouTubers who do more, you know, teaching sewing 101 to learn that. You know. One day I may do a tutorial on setting sleeves. But to be honest with you, this project is definitely more for intermediate sewer. You wouldn't want to start with something like this as a beginner because you will get frustrated. All right, and pin the other side. Alright, stitch this in the same way as we see the embroidery. Yep, stitching out just fine. Knock on wood. Take your time, put the sleeve on 5/8 of an inch, needle down, pin out. Straight stitch. Double check that you haven't caught any other parts of the jacket. Everything's fine. And take your time. Spend the extra time putting your sleeve in because it is an absolute bummer to have to pick the sleeve out and set it again. sure nothing is caught. Very easy to accidentally stitch a part of the jacket into the sleeve. Do not run over your pins. A lot of times you're tempted to run over your pins while you're setting in the sleeves, because try to stop your fabric from shifting, especially after you spend all that time easing in the sleeve. But do not take the risk. Take the pins out. Check to make sure. Perfect. Seams line up. Perfect sleeve set. Perfect, perfect, perfect. Okay. Now we're going to put in the zigzag reinforcement stitch. Take your time, put the jacket on the machine, needle down, make sure you didn't catch any other parts of the jacket. Okay, zigzag stitch 4.0. I will eventually have a camera that will capture the stitching on this machine. I have my Canon, my camera can actually be positioned and connect to this whole platform and function as a second webcam, but I need a continuous power battery. So meaning I need a battery that I can insert into my Canon that's, you know, powered by, you know, a plug-in versus the regular battery, because, you know, it would probably die, you know, halfway through, and then I'd have to stop and change the battery. So I may try that until I can get one. Those batteries are expensive. The power pack battery for my camera is like $180. I mean, it's expensive. All right, so this jacket is thus far completed. Now I am ready to attach the collar, and I'm going to base the collar on first. So I'm going to find the center point, and this is rib knit. which is kind of expensive. Okay, find my center point, match that up with the center point of my jacket. As you can see, I have a horrible habit of marking my fabric. I don't mark this satin fabric because, you know, I don't want to ruin it. Okay, so for this, as long as I get the center point right, everything else is, you know, pretty simple. All right, so again, I'm gonna pin this down, then I'll show you what that looks like. And I'm gonna, oh, look at her eyes, y'all. She's coming to life. All right, that, do the other side. And because I've made so many of these now, I already know where to, I know where to start the collar, where to put it. So that's the beauty of making mock-ups. You know, you can pretty much figure out how everything goes together, and then when you make, you know, multiple ones, you pretty much can just move through it. And so that's where we are with the satin jacket. I mean, I wasn't moving this smoothly through putting it together the first few times because, you know, the instructions will tell you one way, which sometimes, you know, I don't agree with, and I want to do it a different way but get the same results. Then you work all that out during your mock-up, which is also known as your muslin. Okay, so I have pinned the ribbed knit collar to the jacket. So that's the inside. And then this is the right side. Just pin it down. This is what it looks like at the start. Okay, I'm gonna pin this down using a 1/4 inch seam allowance with a basting stitch. So I'm gonna put my stitch length on 4. Regular stitch, 4.0. Go slow because the rib knit tends to get sucked in, like I think it just did. So I'm going to cut it, pull it out, and start again. So I'm going to put a larger pin in to keep it straight until I get it set on the machine. Just take your time. First few stitches, take it out. Do not back stitch with a basting stitch. Now we get moving. Okay. Flat, pins out, the reason we're basting this neck, the collar on is because we still have to put in our lining. And we'll put the regular 5/8 inch seam in when we drop in our lining, which will be next. Okay. Okay. All right. So our neckline is based to our jacket. Now we need to get our lining piece. Since we have 2, we'll just grab 1. All right. And there's my center point for the lining, which is pressed in. I want to take the right side of the lining and match it with the right side of the jacket, and I want to match the center points up. Okay. And I'm going to pin it at the center point. Okay. So there's the center point on my lining, and then there's the center point on my jacket. And now I'm going to pin it. Just pin the main jacket and the lining together, and you're going to have the collar in between. Okay, so you're just going to sandwich that collar in between the jacket and the lining. Now here's my shoulder seam for the lining, and then there's my shoulder seam for the jacket. I need to match those seams up. Okay, and I'm going to pin that. Right, and then just go ahead and pin in between. Everything lines up perfect. Same thing here. Put one pin there. Okay, now I'm on the other side. And the front pieces, front ends together. Okay, sandwich in the neck, the collar, put a pin there. Okay, take the shoulder seam on the other side of the lining and match it up with the shoulder seam of the jacket. Okay, got that lined up. You want to pin it. Okay, go back and drop in one pin between the center and the shoulder. And that's perfect timing. Oh, okay, it's telling me that it says bobbin thread may not be sufficient. Bobbin winding is recommended. So, and even if I tried to hit start, it would not stitch because it's not enough bobbin thread in there to finish the current color. Okay, so we're going to set this aside. That's all pinned together. So when we come back, we're going to put in the 5/8 seam allowance there. We're actually going to, we're going to do that. So let's take care of this bobbin situation first. I'm going to do a thread cut. Then I'm going to gently take it off of the machine. Careful not to snag my fabric. Put that in the back. Pop that open. Take my bobbin out. Put this in my used bobbin bowl. Grab another bobbin, black bobbin, and put it in. Take your time putting it in. Okay, top back on. I'm going to ease lift my presser foot, put it back on the machine. Okay. Now, start it back. Okay. All right. Let's go ahead and stitch the collar portion, 5/8 of an inch seam allowance. And change it back to the regular stitch length. Now we're going to check to make sure that we didn't pinch anything. Okay. Looks good. That's the collar. Collar. It looks good. No pinching. Everything's perfect. Okay, now I'm going to flip it back out. And now we're going to go ahead and put the waistband on. The waistband is rib knit as well. We want to find the right side of the rib knit, and you can tell which side is the right side and which side is the wrong side, because you can, one side feels has more ridges in it than the other side. So find the center point. Center point. Center point is here. I'm going to pin it. Okay, and I gotta put the power cord on here because it's about to die. So let me see what I can rig up here. All right, and it's time, almost time for a thread change. Okay, so let me plug this in. Now I know I brought the power cord down here. Here it is. Okay. Put this in here. Boom. Use this USB extension here. Okay, yay, I did it right. Yay, yay, I got something right tonight. Okay, so now we're gonna work on the fashion fabric first. There's the center point for my jacket. I'm gonna put right sides together at the center point and pin it, okay? So I'm gonna pin my rib knit right sides together at the center point, okay? So that's the first place I'm going to pin. Okay, so it's going to look like that. Then I'm going to pin the ends. Now, if you see here, the rib knit is shorter than the fashion fabric. It's supposed to be that way because you want it, you need to stretch it so that when the jacket is worn, it'll look like, it'll fit properly. I'll explain it better once we get it done. All right, so. All right. So now, just like anything, the same way you would attach elastic, you just, so you have all that difference, right? All you do is pull it like that and pin it. And you do that to both sides. Now, the proper way to do it is you're going to have markings that you're going to line up, but I don't use the markings because I don't have to. All right. And you're going to sew this the same way that you sew knit fabric. Okay, you have to pull on it to stretch it. You don't pull on it so that you're damaging your machine, but you will have to pull on it. Do the same thing to the other side. Pin pin the ends together after you put in the center pin and that. And then just, what I do is I pull it so that it then lays in there flat. Walk my fingers over. Again, I do not advise you to do this if you are a beginner. But if you're sewing this jacket, then you know what I'm talking about. You know what I'm explaining. All right, I think we're getting ready to do a thread change. Yep. All right, raise your presser foot. Clip your thread, gently pull it out. And our next thread color is pink. And then our thread color after that is red and then the gold. So I want to change my bobbin thread to white because those are all light colors that we're going to be finishing up with. So I'm changing my bobbin thread to white. Okay. Take your time, drop it in. So that was the sim thread. Sim thread is, y'all, forget what you heard. But this sim thread, embroidery thread, has not failed me once, and I've used quite a bit of it. And I have quite a bit of it that I haven't even used yet. I'm gonna turn the camera around just a little bit so you can see. Okay, so I have quite a bit. All of that is sim thread, okay? And it works just fine for the single needle machines. I can't speak for using it on multi-needle machines. I don't know, you know, I don't know what the strength would be, but for your single needle machines, works perfectly. Okay, so the next color is pink, which is for her lips. Okay, and as you can see, her lips have already been outlined in black, and they already look pink because the fabric is pink, but it's a big difference when after it's embroidered. It's really cute. Okay. All right. Automatic thread color. Boom. There we go. Boom, 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 boom. All right. Put my hoop back on the machine. Presser foot lift so I don't tear my fabric. Put my hoop back on. Move the fabric out of the way. Press the foot down. Trim the access. And start. Okay. Finish pinning on the waistband to the fashion fabric. Okay, thread change. Raise your presser foot, clip your thread, pull it out. And the next color is red. And this is for her earrings. I'm just gonna use this red here. doing this without standing in front of the machine. But I have the camera in front of the machine, so let me just, oh, she is super cute. Oh my God. All right. Press her foot down. Let it go. Okay. All right. Okay, so we have the waistband pinned, part of the waistband pinned to the fashion fabric, and it looks like this. Now we're going to stitch this down using a 5/8 of an inch. But you guessed it, it's time for a thread change. So I'll just get it set on the machine. And then we'll change the thread. Actually, I'll get it started. Okay, front stitch, back stitch. All right. Clip, lift, remove the thread. Go ahead and clip this little piece. All right. The next color is for her tiara, and we are making that gold color. Put this thread back. Again, take your time, thread your machine. Saves you a bunch of headaches. Automatic threader. Oh, I pulled it out. Didn't get it because I'm going on an angle, so there we go. Press a foot down, start. All right, let's stitch this on. Uh-oh, sounds like a thread pop. Nope. Okay. We have that stitched on fine, and I'm going to go ahead and put in a reinforcement stitch. Zigzag 4.0. Alright, there we have it. We have the waistband on one part of the jacket. Now we have to pin this end of the waistband. So we're going to find the center point. We're going to find the center point of the waistband on the opposite end by just folding it up and pinning it. Okay. That's my center point on the opposite side. So this is the right side of the waistband. We're going to pin that to the center point of the right side of the lining fabric. Okay, we're going to pin this the same way we pinned the other side. Okay, we got that there. Center point, waistband, lining fabric. So we're pinning the waistband to both the fashion fabric and the lining. Okay, and the start point. Oh, she is so cute, y'all. Oh my goodness. All right. Wow. Okay. Wow, we're done, y'all. Yes. Look at that. Is she pretty or what? Oh my. Yes. Peekaboo princess. Right. Let's get her off. Turn the machine off. Ooh wee, y'all, look at her. Oh my goodness. A perfect stitch out. Is she not the cutest? Oh my goodness. So again, I will very gently remove the pins I have on the sides. Okay, then I have to take out the basting stitches very, very carefully. Take a few out. Okay. I'm going to clip that. Keep going. Just take your time. we have it. She's done. Okay, we'll put her to the side. So, we're almost done with the jacket. After the waistband is put on, then I have to close up the whole jacket all the way around. Now, the instructions have you putting the zipper in before you close it up, but I'm not doing that since it's a kid's jacket. That's a whole lot of extra work that's not really needed. But either way, it's going to give you a clean finish. We're gonna at least get this closed up already. Here we go, 5/8 of an inch. Change your machine back to a regular stitch, front stitch, back stitch, and it's eating it because it's knit, and knit almost always gets even. So we'll take it out. And start again. Front stitch, back stitch, 5/8 of an inch, keep moving. Everything's nice and straight. You're not stitching anything you shouldn't be stitching. Do not run over your pins. Now we have, it's going to look like this. So, okay. Now what we're going to do is we're going to put the arms on the inside of the jacket. Almost like we're going to put it inside the pillow. We're going to, oh, forgot to do our reinforcement stitch on the lining real quick. Zigzag stitch 4.0. Machine back to standard stitch. Okay, again, we have our sleeves on the inside of the coat, and now we're going to match up the seams for the waistband. Okay, we're going to take these two seams here, and we're going to match them up. Now these need to be perfect because you will be able to see these on the outside. Okay, and you want to fold your seam allowances down. Okay. Pin it. One pin there. Okay, now that's the bottom of the jacket. Okay, now this is the front of the jacket. Pin this closed on one side. Pin the whole thing closed. Okay. Then on the other side, again, put your sleeves on the inside. Okay, so you have right sides facing on the inside. Again, match up the waistband seams. Take your time and make sure they're perfect. Fold your seam allowances down and pin it. Now, on this side, and it doesn't matter which side you choose, you're going to leave, okay, go up about 2 inches from the bottom band seam. Go up about 2 inches and pin. All right. Then leave about a 3-inch gap, okay, and then finish pinning the rest of the way. You're going to leave that 3-inch gap because that's the opening that we're going to use to turn the jacket right side out. Then we're going to close that 3-inch opening up when we put the zipper in. Now we're going to stitch 5/8 of an inch on both sides from the top to the bottom. But make sure you leave that 3 inches open. Okay. Front back stitch at the beginning and the end of that 3-inch point. Okay. Back stitch and then stitch all the way to the bottom. Okay, back stitch when you get to the bottom. Okay. And on the other side, you're going to stitch all the way through. Okay, 5/8 of an inch. Back stitch at the beginning and the end. Okay. This next part, do not do this if you are tired. Now we're going to trim our seam allowance. We're going to trim the collar. We're going to trim off 1/4 of an inch, and we're going to trim off of 1/4 of an inch on the side, on both fronts. Okay. But at that 3-inch opening, I'm not going to trim that part, and I'll show you how I'll do that one. Trim, take your time. Because it'll be ashamed if you did all that work only to ruin it, cutting the seam allowance. And this far into the project, you really don't have a lot of wiggle room to correct it. Trim your corners so that when we turn it, we'll get a nice sharp corner. Now I'm going to trim the collar. Same way. Take my time. We're reducing bulk in these areas. Trim your corners. Okay. Trim your corners. Okay. So I trim my corners on both sides. That's at the bottom. And I trim my corners at the top. Now, go to that 3-inch opening and very gently turn the jacket right side out. Just do a little bit at a time. Okay. Take your time when you get to the embroidered piece because it's going to be a little thick trying to get through, but it'll come out. Okay. All right. Take your time. Just rip it through. Work it out. Okay. All right, we got the whole thing right side out. Now we're going to take the sleeve and push it in. Push the sleeves in, the sleeve lining in. Okay. Shake it out. Okay. All righty. Double check it. There we go. It's starting to look like a little jacket. There we go. All right, find your 3-inch opening, put your fingers in there and push out your corners. Just use your fingers to do it. You don't want to use your pointers because this fabric is too thin for that. And see, that's perfect. Okay, do the same thing for the waistband. Push out your corner, use your fingers. You don't want to use your pointer pushers because you'll puncture right through the fabric. Perfect. Okay, and just work your fingers over to the other side and do the same thing to that collar. Use your fingers, pinch it out, and then do the same thing to the bottom waistband. Pinch it out. Okay. All right. All right. Now kind of finger press it. And this lining is, you want to make sure you use the proper lining with this because it makes it easier, you know, when you get to this part, and which is when we're going to be dropping in the zipper. Okay, so there you have it, fully lined. All right, collar, waistband. So now, before I drop in the zipper, I will do the sleeves. Now, I don't know if I might stop because I'm getting hungry and it is just about 8 o'clock. So, to do the sleeves, you want to make sure you line up the side seams, and you want to make sure that it's not twisted around. So line up your side seams. Yeah, I'm going to stop because my shoulder's hurting. Okay, so I'm going to pin one. Yeah, it's time to quit. I will get these finished. They'll be finished tomorrow night. So Monday nights and Tuesday nights are my nights that I can work down here. because Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday right now are my rotations to be at the gym. And then, you know, whatever time I can have on the weekends. So that's pretty much what my sewing schedule looks like. Monday nights, Tuesday nights, and the weekends. So, all right. So what I do is I pin the sleeve to the lining, the fashion fabric and the lining fabric, and I will base this, and then I will serge it. And I already have the sleeve cuffs prepared, and then I attach those. But we're gonna have to do that maybe tomorrow because I'm tired. So I do want to show you again the other ones. Look at this. This is a 18 months. Is this not the cutest little thing you've ever seen? And this is the little skirt that goes with this one. Is that not the cutest thing? Oh my gosh. And then of course, this one is the 24 months. And then we'll have the 6-month finish tomorrow. And this is the skirt. Uh-oh, I'm stepping on cords. This is the skirt, the tulle skirt for the 24 month. Super cute. And then this is the skirt. I still have to do the ribbon for the 6T. That is so pretty. So, so pretty. I want to be a kid again. Well, anyway, that's going to conclude tonight's live. Thank you. If anyone watches the rewatch.